In today's lesson, we're going to look at preposition plus which. I know you've seen this. In which, on which, at which, for which, etc. This is an advanced grammar topic, so let's do everything in 5 simple steps. Step number 1, dependent prepositions. Step number 2, which, the relative pronoun. Step number 3, preposition plus which. Step number 4, where versus when versus preposition which. And finally, step number 5, quantifier plus of which. We need to do it like this because if we don't review steps 1 and 2, steps 3, 4, and 5 don't really make much sense. At the end of this lesson, I have a test for you with 7 questions. Can you let me know in the comments below how you did on the test? Did you get 7 out of 7? Or maybe just 4 out of 7? Let me know. My name's Arnell. Let's start. Step number 1, dependent prepositions. What's a dependent preposition? A dependent preposition is a preposition that depends on the verb. A dependent preposition needs an object. Let's do a couple of examples. My teacher talked the exam. I have my verb. I have my object. What preposition do I need? About. My teacher talked about the exam. We talk about something. My mood depends the weather. I have my verb. I have my object. What preposition do I need? On. Something depends on something. This is what I mean by dependent prepositions. Dependent prepositions cause a lot of frustration because there is no rule. You have to memorize them. And not all verbs need a dependent preposition. I bought chocolate. Here, a preposition isn't necessary. So, for today's lesson, I'm just going to use verbs that need that dependent preposition. I have 8 sentences here. This isn't a test, but it's kind of a test. I have my verbs and my objects. Do you know the prepositions I need? Pause the video to do this. Okay, here are the answers. How did you do? If you don't feel you did that well, don't worry. We're going to look at these again later in this lesson. Step number 2, which. Which can be a relative pronoun. A relative pronoun helps to describe something. I do have a full-length lesson on this topic. I'll leave the link down below for you. In this lesson, I'm just going to give you what you need to understand today's grammar. So which is a relative pronoun? Let's look at a couple of examples. I bought an external hard drive which stores up to 1 terabyte. That's a lot. Which stores up to 1 terabyte is my relative clause and is describing the external hard drive. It's kind of like an adjective, isn't it? Karen wore the dress which I bought her. Which I bought her is describing the dress. It's my relative clause. Which one of these whiches can you remove? I can remove the second one. Why? Because it's the object of the clause. I can't remove the first one because it's the subject. So in the second sentence, I can correctly say, Karen wore the dress I bought her. Perfectly fine. Here's a little trick. If you have a subject and a verb after which, you can remove it. If you only have a verb after which, you need to keep it because you know it's your subject. All of this information is important later on. Okay, we reviewed dependent prepositions, which. Let's move on to step number 3. Preposition plus which. Finally, we can put these two together. I'm gonna give you 8 example sentences. Each example sentence is gonna become increasingly more advanced. Let's start with number 1. In this museum, there is a wall which you can draw on. Which you can draw on is my relative clause and is describing the wall. That's pretty cool. Can I remove this relative pronoun? Yes, because it's the object. In this museum, there is a wall you can draw on. And this is a good time to point out how important prepositions are. If I remove my dependent preposition and I just say, there's a wall which you can draw, I mean, that's correct, but it means something completely different. If I say, there is a wall which you can draw, this means you can literally draw the wall. But that's not what I mean. I mean, you can draw on the wall. How can I make this example more formal? I can move that preposition. In this museum, there is a wall on which you can draw. Less formal, more formal. Noun you are describing? Preposition, which, subject, verb. And in the formal option, you cannot remove which. When you have preposition, which together, you need to keep the which. This is the structure we're going to look at today. Number 2. Do you see this tree stump? In my house, there is a wooden cabinet. My grandpa made that cabinet. And this is the tree which it was made from. Which it was made from describes the tree. How can I make this more formal? I can move that preposition. This is the tree from which it was made. Noun you are describing? Preposition, which, subject, verb. Less formal, more formal. If you want to go to college, the SAT exam is something which you must prepare for. If you want to go to college, the SAT exam is something for which you must prepare. Okay, we've done 3 examples so far. You can see my informal column and my formal column. You might be thinking, it's just a little preposition. Does moving it really make a difference? Yes, the formality is quite clear. In day-to-day English, in a conversation, I strongly recommend you use the informal column. It sounds more natural. And remember, informal English does not mean low-level English. If you use the formal option with your friends or classmates, it might make you sound a bit stuffy. Stuffy means too formal, perhaps old-fashioned. Let's take a look.
I'm so nice, seriously, I promise you. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Nothing of which to be afraid.
But I just said that.
You can't end sentences with prepositions. Nothing of which to be afraid is the proper grammar.
Fine, yes, okay. There's nothing of which.
Yes.
Huh?
That's
Go with
better.
that. Of which to be afraid, okay? Huh? You can.
Okay, here the man uses a completely natural sentence. There's nothing to be afraid of. And just so you know, this is the shortened version of there is nothing which you need to be afraid of. And the lady clearly likes her formal grammar rules. So yes, you can say there is nothing of which you need to be afraid. But is this situation formal? No. I mean, which question sounds better? Which room do I need to look in? In which room do I need to look? The first one. The second one is stuffy. So, preposition which is best used in formal situations. Documentaries, news reports, presentations, cover letters, legal documents, and novels. Number 5. The Amber Spyglass is a novel written by Philip Pullman. As I was reading this, I thought, ooh, there are so many great examples of preposition plus which. See, I'm always thinking about your lessons. I took a picture of the example I wanted to show you, but I think it's best if I just put the text on the screen. In this part here, the author is talking about a Swiss Army knife. One of the attachments was a miniature magnifying glass with which he used to burn a design onto a dry branch. And the sentence continues, but this is the part I want to show you. With which. Noun we are describing, preposition which, subject, verb. Yes, I could make this less formal, but to be honest, in this sentence, which and with are kind of far apart, so it actually does sound better to put with before which. Let's look at a TED Talk.
You can see the very elegant Roman cursive in which this message was written. Can you trace the large flourishes?
Okay, you can see the grammatical structure. I could make it less formal. We've looked at a novel, we've looked at a presentation. Let's go to an official website, Forbes.com. Number 7. In 2003, the Postal Service's album, Give Up, garnered attention in part from the method by which it was created. Here's the grammar. Less formal, in part from the method which it was created by. Number 8, last example. Let's look at a legal document. Ooh, very formal. The United States Constitution assures those charged with a serious federal crime that they will be prosecuted in the state and district in which the crime occurred. Less formal, in the state and district which the crime occurred in. 8 examples done. Some of you might be thinking, but what about people? How can we describe people? If you want to describe people using today's grammar, it becomes preposition plus whom. But this is a topic for a different lesson. Step number 4. We know which is a relative pronoun. We looked at that in step 2. We can use where to describe a location and when to describe time. That makes sense, right? We can formally replace where and when using preposition plus which. In this case, how do I choose my preposition? It's no longer about a dependent preposition, but instead prepositions of time and place. I'm sure your brain is doing this at the moment. Let's keep going. I'll give you lots of examples. Location. Let's start with a building. That's the hospital where I was born. That's the hospital in which I was born. Why did I choose in? Because we are born in a hospital. This is different from the rule we looked at earlier. In this example here, in which is not about location. It's about the dependent preposition. So if you see preposition which, you do need to think, is it replacing where? Am I talking about a location? Or is it based on the dependent preposition? If your location needs at, use at.
So by calculating the direction and intensity of a given rock's magnetic field, we can discover the latitude at which it was located at the time of cooling.
At which. I could also say where. That would also be correct. Why do we use at? Because something is at latitude. For example, Los Angeles is at latitude 34 degrees 5 minutes and 22 seconds north. But where is also used to describe a situation. What? Where? A situation? Yes, it doesn't have to be about a location. I think many of you are familiar with the TV show Friends. Let's look at a couple of the episode names. The One Where, The One Where, The One Where. Here, the titles are not speaking about a location, they're talking about the situation that's going to happen in that episode. Yes, I could formally replace where with in which because things happen in an episode, but for a sitcom, that's really not necessary. I want to show you a few more examples, again using TED Talks.
Well, you know that situation where you get an evaluation from your boss and she tells you 37 things that you do really awesome and one thing that you can't, an opportunity for growth? They talked about the willingness to say I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness...
By the way, we stigmatize mistakes. And we're now running national education systems where mistakes are the worst thing you can make. And the result is that we are...
Yep, in which is a correct alternative. I thought these were formal talks. Why are they using where? Because where is very natural. Remember earlier I said, and remember, informal English does not mean low-level English. The reason I want to emphasize this is because I don't want you to think you have to use the formal option to sound more correct and advanced. Okay, last example in part 4. Let's do one example with when, time. The barbecue has to be a day when everyone is off. Off means not at work. The barbecue has to be a day on which everyone is off. Why do I choose on? Because things happen on a day. On Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday. Step number 5, quantifier plus of which specifically. What's a quantifier? A quantifier is something that shows you the quantity. In other words, how many or how much. Here's a list of common quantifiers which many of you are familiar with. Janet was offered 2 jobs. Both of the jobs, or both of them, sound fantastic. How can I put these together? Janet was offered 2 jobs, both of which sound fantastic. The noun we are describing, comma. In written English, we have to have that comma. Quantifier of which subject verb or just verb. Amy loves collecting mugs. Many of the mugs, or many of them, she bought while traveling. Let's put those together. Amy loves collecting mugs, many of which she bought while traveling. Noun we are describing, comma, quantifier of which subject verb or just verb. I have 5 boxes here. One of the boxes has $1,000 in it. I have 5 boxes, one of which has $1,000 in it.
By researching these adaptations, scientists have developed remarkable preservation technologies, some of which are already employed in medicine. However, researchers are still trying to...
Test time! Are you ready? If you've made it this far, well done. On one side, I have 6 rules we looked at in today's lesson. On the other side, I have 7 example sentences. Can you connect the rule to the example sentence? Yes, one of the rules is going to connect to 2 of the example sentences because there are 7. Pause the video to do this. Okay, here are the answers. How did you do? Leave me your score down below. And you can also write me a few example sentences. I hope this lesson was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye!